Ah yes, the Demon List, one of the most respected lists in the community. A list well known for having high quality levels and for pushing the envelope as to how far people can push the difficulty in this game. And now this list is topped by Avernus, the most controversial level in this community. Avernus is a level that has pissed a lot of people off, and a lot of that hate is warranted. However, I feel some of that hate is also a little over-exaggerated and unwarranted. I myself have made a video negatively speaking on the topic. However, I don't think Avernus is all bad, and I want to make a video looking at the positive, as it always sucks when you look at a topic like someone creating a piece of art, and that piece of art is basically just being hammered as garbage, and there's not a single positive opinion towards that level. The reason I'm making this video is because I believe there is genuinely a lot of positive things you can say about Avernus, and so here is a unbiased, in-depth review of Avernus. Now firstly, I want to get something off my chest right off the bat. I am not trying to milk this level for content. This will be, I believe, my third time speaking about Avernus, because I made one video on the topic, and then I talked about it in ranking the Demon List. I'm not trying to milk this for content, I genuinely feel I have interesting stuff to put into the table. Alright, with all the disclaimers out of the way, let's get right into the video. So the first thing I want to talk about with this level is its controversial relationship to the Golden and how I feel about its relationship to the Golden. So first and foremost, the relationship to the Golden in and of itself is very complex and muddy because so much misinformation has been spread and so many people have said so many different things. All in all, the exact confusion you'd expect when a level changes hosts came into play. Originally, the creator of this level was Bo, the same person who created the Golden. And the level was supposed to be, from my knowledge, a sequel to the Golden. And that was it was just a sequel. Then later on, pretty much around the time Pocky Windfish got his hands on it, it turned into an antagonist level, and Pocky Windfish started attacking people for calling it a sequel. And then after that, people started saying it had nothing to do with the Golden. I'm going to go off of the original statement that this was a sequel to the Golden, because that was the one stated by Bo. Already with this confusing labeling on it's a sequel, it's an antagonist level, it has nothing to do with the level, and no one can make up their mind on this, I just want to analyze the story of both levels and see how well they compare to each other. So first of all, we'll talk about the Golden. The Golden is based off of Anubis' level El Dorado, and it follows a very similar story progression. Basically, what's happening in the Golden is you're traversing a jungle looking for the mystical El Dorado, which is a golden city, hence the name of the level. This also explains why the entirety of the Golden is green, and you end up seeing a golden city as the end screen, because beating the level is finding the golden city. It's actually kind of poetic when you look at the theming, and it works fairly well. Compare that to Avernus. We'll get into the decoration in a bit, however, I want to talk about the theming of Avernus and compare it to the theming of the Golden. So first of all, what even is Avernus? For those of you who have been playing a lot of Baldur's Gate 3, you probably already know what this is, as they actually use the location in-game. However, for those of you who don't know what Avernus is, I will explain. Avernus is actually the name of a massive volcanic crater located in Italy, which contains a massive volcanic lake known as Lake Avernus. There's a lot of interesting things about Avernus, however, the main thing that's of note here is the beliefs of the ancient Romans at the time. There were a lot of beliefs, however, they all centered around the same idea, and that idea is that Avernus contained a gateway to the underworld, which, for those of you who don't know what that means, it's hell. The beliefs at the time basically came down to the fact that if you searched hard enough within the ancient crater of Avernus, you would find a gateway to hell. And this was interesting because there were a lot of extra beliefs that came into existence because of this belief. Stuff like, if a bird flew over the lake of Avernus, the bird would just drop dead. So you might be wondering, what does any of this have to do with the actual level Avernus? Well, the simple fact is, I believe this level is actually based off of the ancient Romans' belief. More so specifically, I think what this level is the player looking for the gates of hell. Which is really interesting, because when you apply that logic, and you compare it to the Golden, you realize how well these two levels mirror each other. Think about it. The Golden involves looking through a jungle to find the ancient city of El Dorado. Avernus is telling the story of someone looking through an ancient crater to find the gates of hell. Both levels are the player looking in a location for an ancient spiritual landmark. This means that yes, Avernus actually works really, really well as a sequel to the Golden, but unfortunately this theming has just flown over people's heads, which I find really unfortunate because when you actually compare the two levels to each other, it's actually kind of beautiful. What about the other aspects of the level, though? Because a level can have great theming, but still fall apart if it fails in every other aspect, and, well, I agree with that. However, I'm actually going to come out and say something that I've never actually said publicly before. I like the decoration of Avernus. Now, no, I'm not contradicting my other video on Avernus. In that video, I was more explaining the controversy and why everyone was angry at the level. And one of those reasons is that the decoration in this level is really easy to recreate. And I still stand by that. This level feels like a very rushed project, and you can tell that a lot of the stuff in this level was built by following tutorials on YouTube. However, I'm gonna say something that might be a little bit controversial. It does not matter how much effort you put into your decoration. If the decoration still looks good, then, well, it looks good. You've accomplished good decoration. Don't get me wrong, I still think the level's decoration is fairly outdated and very, very flawed. Trust me, this level looks like an old AP Team project from 2020. But does that mean it looks bad? No, because I'd still say that anyone who's able to build on the level of AP Team back in 2020 is still a talented creator. This decoration is by no means simple, and just because you can build all of it using a guide doesn't necessarily mean it should be discarded as bad decoration. The only reason I talked about the decoration in my old video is because people were using it to justify the rate, which I don't think is a good thing, because the rate is controversial due to other reasons. But we'll get to that when we get to that. For now, I want to pick apart the decoration and just point out some little things here and there that I like, and also some things I don't like. Throughout the level, a majority of the decoration is really solid, with a really good use of colors, which is very hard to recreate. And that's something I want to talk about, by the way. Just because it's easy to replicate the deco doesn't mean it's easy to replicate the color choices, and I do think the colors in this level are executed pretty well. Yeah, it's another hell level, but the shades of red that are picked go really well together, and I have to compliment that. They clearly knew when to use bright colors and dark colors and where they would contrast best, and I think they did a very good job with the decoration here. However, unfortunately, a lot of the decoration is very out of place, and some of it just looks wrong. And I don't mean wrong as in, like, there's a decoration error or anything like that. I mean, they used connected texture blocks and didn't connect them properly. Unfortunately, I think the worst looking part of the level is the very beginning, which is not a very good thing when it's the first impression. A lot of people are going to see the beginning of the level, go, oh, this sucks, and then click off, which is unfortunate because the level has really good decoration sprinkled in here and there. I do want to talk about this beginning section, though, as it basically encompasses all of my problems with the decoration. A lot of the textures aren't stitched together properly. What I mean by this is that you'll have a texture that just kind of hangs off, or you'll have two textures that are misaligned and look really bad next to each other. It's kind of hard to describe, but if you look at it for more than a second, you can see what I'm talking about. And that's all I have to say about the decoration. There's a lot of good, there's a lot of bad. That's really it. It's not that complicated. The decoration in this level is passable, and in some places does look pretty alright. It's just that a couple parts could have used a little bit more work. And finally, the most controversial part of Avernus that I want to talk about is the gameplay. This is where I have to give a big disclaimer. See, in my last video I didn't really worry about this because I wasn't talking about my opinions, I was mainly talking about the community's overall opinions and explaining the controversy. In this case, however, every single one of these opinions is mine. And the reason I give that disclaimer is because I am not good enough to beat these levels. At all. And therefore, I cannot talk about the enjoyment of these levels. I don't know if they're fun to play, and I won't know, because the only people who know that are people who have significant runs. Because of that, when I talk about the gameplay, I'm mainly referring to how it looks visually, and I'm gonna say something a little controversial. Avernus' gameplay is extremely entertaining to watch. I've been tuning into a lot of Diamond's streams where he's been grinding and trying to beat Avernus, and GG on getting 87, by the way. And the thing I've noticed watching his streams is that no matter how many times I see the same deaths over and over and over again, this level never gets boring to watch, which is a huge accomplishment and something that is really hard to pull off. Genuinely, I don't know how much more to say about this, really. All I can say is that I like the gameplay of Avernus. It visually looks really cool. However, there's one major elephant in the room that we can't avoid any longer. Yeah, we gotta talk about the fixed hitboxes. So I have mixed opinions on the fixed hitboxes, but I have one very negative opinion about them, and I also have one very positive opinion about them. And you might think, what could I possibly say about the fixed hitboxes in Avernus that's positive? We'll get to that, don't worry. First and foremost, I want to talk about why the fixed hitboxes are actually bad in the first place. And there's a misconception that I think the fixed hitboxes makes the gameplay bad, and like I said, I can't have an opinion on that. I don't know how the level plays. More so, the reason I hate the fixed hitboxes so much is because they're bad from a level design perspective and a game design perspective. The issue with fixed hitboxes like this is that you have one spike with the original vanilla hitboxes, and then you have another with a fixed hitbox. Now, keeping in mind that the reason we even have fixed hitboxes is because they take a spike, they make it invisible, and then they put that farther up the tip of the spike so that the hitbox pokes out the top. With this fixed hitbox, it's dishonest, because it's not so much a fixed hitbox, rather, there's an invisible spike that's closer to the player. And it's just really, really dishonest, because what you effectively have created is two spikes that look identical, but one has a different hitbox than the other. People shit on RobTop's hitboxes all the time, and then let stuff like this slide, and it's just really, really annoying in my opinion. Every single object that looks identical should have identical hitboxes. The only time they should be different is if the hitbox is scaled up or down. If you have two spikes that look identical, they should have identical hitboxes. Ironically, I think what this means is that the best way fixed hitboxes can be used, and yes, there is a way they can be used, is to just simply make them visible. If you can see the fixed hitbox, you know it's there, and it's not going to be as deceptive to the player. It's a lot more fair. If you were able to see these tiny little spikes poking out the tip of the big spike, then I wouldn't have an issue with it. Especially if you maybe found a way to incorporate that into the actual spike's decoration. Because if you can see the spike, you can visually tell where the hitbox is as a player, and it's not unfair. The issue literally just comes down to the fact that this is invisible. But that's where I actually need to defend the fixed hitboxes a little bit. More specifically, I want to defend Zoink. See, Zoink has gotten a pretty bad reputation as a verifier, to the point where people will gatekeep verifications away from him and not let him verify things. And I think this is very unfair. I don't like the fact that Zoink is basically the new Lord Vadercraft, because Zoink got that reputation purely from Avernus. However, when you look at why Zoink did what he did with Avernus, it's perfectly justifiable. Keep in mind, before I say what I'm about to say, Zoink was instructed to keep this level top 1. Keeping in mind, Avernus was originally finished around the time Tartarus and the Golden were 1 and 2 on the demon list. All this level had to do to be top 1 when it was originally created was dethrone Tartarus. Zoink was instructed to keep it top 1 after Acheron was placed on the list. So he did indeed need to buff it quite a bit. Now, stopping right here, if you want to argue that the level is bad specifically because it was forced to be a top 1, I agree, actually, 100%. However, that is not Zoink's fault, that is the people who were in charge of the level. Basically, it's Pocky Windfish's fault. With what I just explained, I think it's pretty clear that Zoink absolutely needed to buff the level. However, there's an issue with that. See, in most projects, if you need to buff, fix, or nerf your level, you just select the spike and you move it. Simple. You either move it, replace it, or delete it altogether. With Avernus, it's not that simple. So here I have Avernus open in the editor. I have the beginning of the level, which is the important part for the sake of what I'm showing off. And the problem with Avernus is if I select a random object and I click Go to Layer, it's going to bring us to Layer 106. Why do we want to look at this? Well, because this reveals that every single object in Avernus is on the same layer. I don't think you comprehend how hard this makes it to make changes to this level. However, that's where things get interesting. So if you actually look at this, if you try to select and move these spikes at all, and let's say you do successfully select the spike, well, you'd also have to find a way to select the decoration with it, because if you move the spike, you create decoration errors that look really, really bad. And so what does Zoink do? Well, quite simply, he uses fixed hitboxes to buff the level, specifically so that he does not break the decoration. He might have taken the entire level, moved it to a far-off layer of layer 106 so that he doesn't mess with the level, and then if we go to group 0, we can see all he did was place spikes on top of the level, specifically so that he didn't break the decoration. Zoink actually cared about this level. It's just really interesting to see this because the narrative that's being spun is that Zoink didn't give a shit about the level and he just lazily buffed it. But indeed, it is the opposite. Zoink buffed the level in such a way where he didn't break the decoration at all. He preserved the level's quality while still making it harder like he was told to do. Now obviously this means the level at its best would have been completely unaltered with no buffs, and I agree. But again, that's not Zoink's fault. And when you look at it from this perspective, the fixed hitboxes are actually not that bad, specifically because they are better than any other alternative we could have had. Because I'll be honest, I'd rather the level be awful to play than have the level get ruined by just moving objects away from the decoration. It would be like trying to solve a jigsaw puzzle, but finding two pieces that don't match and then just getting lazy and super gluing them together. And I can tell you right now, Zoink did not want to do that. He gave a shit. Now taking a step back, do I actually like Avernus with everything we've talked about here? No, I still don't like the level. I think it is a failure, however, most of that failure comes in from the hosting process. Pocky Windfish has destroyed this level's reputation, badly labeling what the level even is so no one knows whether or not it's a sequel, it's an antagonist level, or it has nothing to fucking do with the Golden, all the way to telling Zoink to buff the level to top 1. All of the things that have ruined this level were Pocky Windfish. But if you ignore stuff like the level being buffed to top 1 and the weird labeling as to what the level is, and you just take it in as a level that exists, an art piece, there is definitely value here. As it stands today, Avernus is currently at the #1 spot on the demon list, and because of that, Avernus has forever cemented itself and its legacy as being part of this game's history. Anytime you talk about the history of GD, Avernus will come up in some way. And honestly, I don't mind that. I have a lot of respect for what this level was able to do despite the very obvious problems its creation process had. Going through several hosts, being screwed over by everything being on the same layer, and the verifier being told to buff it to the point where the level just defies the logic of game design. Despite all of those issues, what we have here is a miracle. This level, by all accounts, should not exist, and I'm glad it does. This level is a very valuable art piece to me, and I think this level deserves a lot more respect. It's okay if you don't like choices that were made with the level, but to disregard this entire thing is just a little bit sad to me, because there is definitely value here. Considering it is Thanksgiving, I feel like I need to be thankful for something, and I really do think this level is it. Despite all of the shitty circumstances surrounding the level, it, by some miracle, does exist. And I'm really, really thankful for that. I'm glad this level came to fruition and the project was inevitably finished and released. That's all I have to say. Thank you for watching.